Hi, my name is Nikki. I'm the Obsessive Bookseller, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm taking a look at some upcoming new releases that I am really excited for. I tend to do these types of posts and videos twice a year because they're one of my favorites to compile. I love taking a look at new books coming out. In fact, seeing the new books on the horizons with their cover reveals is a huge driving force for my reading. It always reminds me when I was a kid, and to see the new covers, you had to actually go to the bookstore and see what new stuff had come out. Because back then, you couldn't just check on the internet. You actually had to go to the bookstore and see what new releases there were. And the sense of excitement I always felt at seeing those brand new covers, oh, so good. And there are a lot of books that I could have mentioned for this video, but I'm sticking to the ones that have pretty solid release dates and actual covers to show you. I'm going to start with a couple that I've had a chance to read already. So, Trouble with the Cursed by Kim Harrison. I'm sure my patrons are just sick to death of hearing about this one, but I am about halfway through. It comes out on June 14th, and it's book 16 in the Hollow series. And for book 16, this is every bit as good as the early stuff that she did. In fact, I think she's getting better with time, and I can't say that about a lot of stuff. It seems like a lot of series, when they drag things out this long, tends to lose quality and it feels like they're just phoning it in, but that is not the case here. I am loving every single moment, and I will continue loving every single moment until she decides she's done writing in Rachel's world. I love that one. And then on June 26th, In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan is coming out. I've read this book. I'll post my review for it. I really liked it. Maybe not quite as much as I liked Powder Mage, but still, it's only a first book, and so I'm still trying to get a feel for where he's going with this. It's a very unconventional read. It's got a really cool magic system based around infused glass with different magical properties, and quite a nice variety of interesting POVs. And I am just stoked because Tor was kind enough to send me this physical copy, and yeah. Getting this in the mail fulfilled all of my wildest book blogging dreams. I'm just so stoked that I have a copy of this in my hands. Yes, June 26th, check it out. The Martyr by Anthony Ryan coming out June 28th. I had a hard time with Pariah. I talk up and down about how Anthony Ryan is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love his Draconius Memoria series, and Pariah didn't work for me on a couple of different levels, and it's a plotting thing with me. This isn't a criticism of his writing or anything. It was just the type of story that he told and how he told it just didn't sing to me. I have a full review up for that, but I was debating on not continuing The Martyr at all. But as he's one of my favorite authors, he's one of the few I get emails from, and I saw that there was a special edition being printed that was going to be signed for The Martyr, and it was late and I was weak and I bought it. So I wasn't even sure if I wanted to read it, but now that I have a beautifully signed, expensive copy headed my way, maybe I'll pick it up. The first book felt really disjointed. It felt like it started over a couple of times, so I'm hoping the second book won't have that same problem. I'm hoping that the character will become more of a catalyst of his own destiny. But the fact that it's called The Martyr makes me think I'm not really gonna like the type of story that it is, but we'll see. I'm committed. June 28th. On July 14th, my favorite sci-fi author, Michael Mamet, is coming out with a new Audible exclusive book called The Weight of Command, and I am so excited. Already this year, I've gotten to read Misfit Soldier, and so to have two releases from a favorite author in a single year is just like, woohoo! At this point, I know that I can expect witty characters, a fun story, and just overall satisfying read. I've said it before, but I know people love Becky Chambers as their feel-good sci-fi read. That's what Michael Mamet does for me. She's got just such a good substance and good overall plot. So everything that I want, but still feeling like I had a really great time while reading them. He was kind enough to send me an advanced copy of the audiobook, and I'm like chomping at the bit to get started with it. I can't wait. There's some interesting ones coming out in August. There's one called The First Binding by Verdi coming out 8/16. I've seen this one floating around as available as an e-arc, and I've almost picked it up a couple of times, but I find myself really buried with physical reads right now, so I just haven't made time to pick it up. But I keep reassuring myself that I can just read it when it comes out. I like the cover, I like the premise for it, and it just seems like the type of book that I'm really gonna love. So very excited for that one. One of the few on the list from someone that I haven't read anything from yet. Also in August, Soul Taken by Patricia Briggs. It's the next Mercy Thompson series. Normally, we see a Mercy release every March, or an Alpha Omega. And this year it took her a little bit longer to write this book, so I've been waiting patiently for an arc to become available, and I finally got one. And I'm so buried right now that I haven't been able to pick it up, but I'm hoping by the end of the month I will. I'm very excited for this one. Mercy Thompson is another one of those really long ongoing series that I feel is just as good now as it was when it very first started. Like, she's maintaining momentum really well. Everything is so interesting. And her characters are still a bits of enigmas here and there. I don't know everything I want to know about them, and that sense of discovery is a huge driving point for me to continue reading. I love it. Everybody freaking out about Jim Butcher? Try Kim Harrison and Mercy Thompson. In fact, I think I recommend Mercy Thompson much more than Jim Butcher because he doesn't make a really strong case for himself in the first book, but I feel like Mercy Thompson starts out strong and only gets better from there. That's my recommended gateway urban fantasy if you've been stalling. I will say the female writers tend to have a little bit more of a romance thread than the male writers, but in my opinion, it never dominates the awesome paranormal aspects of the plot. And speaking of, even though Mercy Thompson is my gateway recommend, my all-time favorite is anything written by Alona Andrews, and she has Ruby Fever coming out on August 23rd. Believe it or not, this, despite the cover, was my most anticipated release for this year. Of anything. I wanted to read this more than I want to read Lost Metal. That's like crazy to me. And I know I'm not going to sell anybody on this series because of the covers. Like, I get it. They were published by Avon, but they are every bit as good urban fantasies as the rest of the stuff. Just happens to be marketed to romance readers, even though there's not a strong romance component in them. I've read this one already. It was the conclusion to the second trilogy in this world, and I ate up every moment. I absolutely loved it. But I'm never going to get anybody to read just these. You have to start with Kate Daniels. Start with the Kate Daniels series. Magic Bites was like a 2.5 star read for me. It was the weakest of the series, but then it just skyrocketed from there. I liked it enough that I even read all the short stories that went along with it, and I only do that in series that I'm super invested in. In fact, I feel like if you've read Butcher and nothing else, you'd probably like this series more than the others that I suggested. Also coming out in August, book 4 in the Seven Swords series, Blackfire Keep by Anthony Ryan. These are novellas, but they somehow manage to be so rich with world building. One of the most ambitious world building projects I've seen Ryan take on so far, and I'm loving every moment so far. I've read just the first book, and I've got plans to read the next two in leading up for this one. And I've already pre-ordered a copy because I think the cover is just wicked cool. Coming out August 27th, Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. It's book 3 in the Scholomance trilogy. And this was supposed to be a duology, and I still haven't read the second book yet, but I want to. But I'm just worried that they stretched it out to 3 books unnecessarily, just for the extra little bit of, But I love the first one enough that I'm still really anticipating this one. I hear a lot of criticism for this series because the character isn't exactly likable, but I've been reading so many books lately where the characters are almost too likable. They're too perfect. And the fact that one of the major conflicts in this book is that this character keeps getting in her own way because of her attitude, I found that wildly entertaining. If she could just get over her martyrdom long enough to make things happen, she could do great things. It's just got some brilliant ideas for some good anti-hero, origin story. And I love the school. I think the concept is so cool. So I can't wait to see what happens next. I did see that there was a digital copy of this third one available already, and I'm like, I'm way behind. One that I'm kind of eyeballing but not sure about, there's one called Dead Man's Hand by James Butcher, coming out October 11th. It was written by Jim Butcher's son, and I'm hesitant. New writer, there's a chance he only got published because his daddy's in the industry. And then I'm half wondering if it's taking us so long to hear news on the next Dresden book is because he's been helping his son with this project. I'm all over the place with this, but the crux of it is this is on my radar, and I would like to give it a chance. I know I like the type of story that Dresden tells, and I'm sure his son got a lot of inspiration from that, so yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot. I may not read it as an arc, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And no good upcoming release video in the science fiction fantasy genre would be complete without The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I'm one of the few out there who actually really loves the US cover. I think the red will go nicely on the shelf with the rest of the US covers. I think it's a brilliant choice, and I think it's going to look amazing. I loved the first trilogy. I feel like comparing the first trilogy to the second is like apples and oranges because they are so wildly different. I didn't realize I liked fantasy that took place in like the 1920s era with like some steampunk elements before I read this series. I thought it did a great job introducing this kind of detective work, and loved that the magic is infused, and I really appreciated some of the tie-ins to the first trilogy. And I have to say, if you have not read Mistborn: A Secret History, do so before continuing on in this series, because the payoff when you hit the end of the third book is oh so worth it. There's the second book, The Shadows of Self, is one of my all-time favorite books. I loved it so much, and I am kind of working myself up motivation to go back and reread everything before this one comes out because it has been quite a while. But I know I liked it enough that I will enjoy the journey. Can't wait to see how it ends. It seems like every 2 years in the fall I set aside a whole month to just binge read a Sanderson. Last time I did it, I reread 2 Stormlight books to continue on with the new one. He's one of the few authors that I'm willing to set aside everything I'm doing and do a reread. And for Stormlight, it's like so much time, 2 weeks for one book. But I'm willing to do it because it's Sanderson and I love him so much. So I'm hoping this is a really good payoff to a series. If I can read it before then, I will. And last but not least is the new Shenan Maguire's Wayward Children series, Lost in the Moment and Found, comes out January 10th. And there are already e-arcs available for this one, and I'm just eager to get a copy of this. But I have so many things going on right now that I'm showing a little bit of restraint. But this is such a unique, cool series. It's a set of novellas, and each one kind of follows a different world. Some are much more successful than others, but the ones that land really landed like solid 5-star reads. Some of the funnest things I've ever read. And I have no idea what to expect with this one. I like to go in completely blind. I don't want to know anything about the plot, and I like to be surprised. But yes, I'm very much looking forward to that one. So there's my lineup. A lot of good books to look forward to between now and the end of the year. A lot of urban fantasy releases, more so than I realized while I was compiling the list. I absolutely cannot wait. There are so many that don't have covers yet or that don't have solid release dates that I could have mentioned. I am anticipating quite a few upcoming books, like next books in series that I'm absolutely loving that just haven't been fully written yet, but yeah, hopefully I'll get to cover those when I do this again in the winter. But yeah, I want to know, what books are you most anticipating this year? Any other urban fantasy readers out there? Bueller? Thank you so much for joining me on this video, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.